Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Thursday, August 5th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that page and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. The book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of that book provides a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for the past 17-plus years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and help me turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each of us have been gifted. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. You can also download the PDF file of that worksheet itself. And in combination with those audio files, you can have a tutorial that will help you become proficient and eventually master the use of that tool for improving your life and relationships. And you can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often because the actual application of that tool in their lives is a benefit, and because it usually prompts comments, questions, answers, or testimonials. And if you have that, give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. Or, alternatively, you could send an email to me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Or you can send an email to Jeannie at jeanie@yagain.org. And we will entertain your comments and questions on the show, and you'll be able to access that through the archives if you're not able to join us live. We're also doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year. This is the 217th day of the year, which means we're on lesson 217 in the workbook. It continues the review, and it says, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as the Creator created me. Today is a review of Lesson 197, which reads, It can be but my own gratitude I earn. Who should give thanks for my salvation but myself? And how about through salvation, through salvation, can I find the self, capital S self, to whom my thanks are due? Everything is connected. You are an offspring of the Creator. As such, you have creative capacity for yourself. And when you are allowing yourself to be reconnected to your Creator and your Source, that is your salvation, and you are the one responsible for it. And it is your own gratitude that you earn. Pam Grout, in her Course of Miracles experiment book, titles her lesson 217 as A Theater of Smoke and Mirrors. She quotes Jackie Lewis as saying, My God smells like vanilla and is full of sass and truth, delivered with kindness. Pam writes, Here on planet Earth, we put a lot of sway in structure, in material form, in having one particular identity. But it's all a theater of smoke and mirrors. Material structure, by its very nature, is mortal it's going to change. It's eventually going to die. Pam Grout is a temporary identity that works for me now. Like Simba singing with the warthogs, I am currently pretending to be the author of this book. And like Simba, who eventually acknowledges his true identity in the reflecting pool, I will eventually acknowledge mine as a blessed part of life, constantly expanding and flowing, morphing into ever more beauty, possibility, and love. So that's Pam Grout's lesson. That's our review lesson from the workbook, Lesson 17. And we have plenty of time for conversation. We've got a solid 50 minutes left to entertain your comments or questions, to head down the path of any topic you might choose that's relevant to our work, and or to entertain testimonials. Today is a Thursday, which means we have another Mind Shifters support group available again today through Zoom, wherever you are. If you've got internet access, you can join us. If you want to find out how to do that, you can go to mindshiftersacademy.org and look up the information for the Thursday support group. There's separate call-in information for Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, how can we support you today? What's on your mind? What would be of use for you to hear us explore? What can we explore together, as Krishnamurti would say? We're having a conversation. The speaker is the one doing most of the talking right now, but the listeners should be actively exploring these concepts within themselves. I have been talking quite a bit lately about the different interviews that I've been arranging and accomplishing for the Journey's Dream podcast titled On Your Mind, hosted by Journey's Dream. And I've been trying to let people know about the fact that we have an integrative mental health summit that's going to be sponsored by Journey's Dream and the Mensa Medical Group. They do targeted molecular nutritional therapy, and that's going to run the 8th through 10th of October, and information about that is available at integrativementalhealthsummit.org. Integrative Mental Health Summit, all one word, .org. And if you know of a tremendous resource that you or someone in your life has used to great effect, please turn us on to that. Either give me a call at 563-999-3581 or send me an email at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. I have had a couple sessions already this morning. The primary, the big powerhouse session started at 9 o'clock this morning, was with a gentleman who has a 37-year-old son who's moved back into his house. And the gentleman has come to me asking for help because he is unable to motivate his son to be independent, live alone, get a job, clear up his reputation, whatever it might take. And he's also not having very much luck motivating his son to be a good roommate or a good housemate. And so those people who know me well know that I gave this person a copy of my Power Struggle Handbook. It's currently written as the Parenting Power Struggle Handbook, but the concept of the power struggle is one of the most important, useful pieces of structure of thinking that I've ever come across, and I've written about it for decades. And the concept of a power struggle is that I am either in a power struggle or I make myself vulnerable to a power struggle. Anytime I have more of my energy focused on things I cannot control and less of my energy focused on things I can control. And the only way that I know to get out of a power struggle once I'm in one is to accurately identify, out of all the things that are going on in my life, what are those things I actually have some control over, and what are those things I have no control over? Very few things in my life that I guarantee, even as a psychologist. But I tell people in the power struggle model work, I guarantee this. If I'm in a power struggle, I'm feeling tense, anxious, frustrated, and I put some energy into fixing the situation and it gets worse or stays the same. And I put some more energy into it and it gets worse or stays the same. I'm probably in a power struggle. If I can take a break and step back and identify all the factors going on in my life and put on one side of the equation everything I don't have any control over, and put on the other side of the equation the few things that I do have control over, which, if I'm an adult dealing with other equals in my life, what I have control over often boils down to my own behavior, my own thoughts and words. I'm going to find, I guarantee people this, they will find that almost all of their energy is focused on things they have no control over. Other people's behavior, the weather, how many hours there are in a day, etc. I don't have any control over those things. But that's where my focus will be when I find myself in frustration, anger, hurt, sadness, confusion, bitterness, etc. The only way I know to get out of a power struggle once I've identified that is to take the focus of my energy off of those things that I have no control over and shift it consistently over to what I do have control over. Formulate a plan based on things I have control over, and then take action on that plan. Once I have taken action on a plan that's formulated strictly from things that I have control over, there will be no more power struggle. To add some real energy to this, I need to make sure that everything I decide I'm going to do fits 4 rules, follows 4 rules. The first rule is every item I put on the list of things I will do must be something I can do, physically, legally, financially, morally, ethically, or any other way that it might stop me. Remember, I got frustrated. I called a timeout. I backed away from the situation. I looked at everything that's going on. I correctly identify those things I have control over, and now I'm going to formulate a plan of action for myself. Every item in that plan of action must be something I can do, physically, legally, financially, morally, or ethically. The second rule that must apply to every item I put on the list of things I hope to do is that every item on that list must be something that I will follow through and do. So I'm not going to threaten somebody that if they don't do what I ask them to do, I'm going to pick them up with my little finger and throw them into the next county if they weigh too much for my little finger to support that weight, and if the next county is 5 miles away, that's ridiculous. I can't physically do it. The reasons for the first 2 rules in this model are that every time I put something on my list of things I want to do, or I tell somebody something that I'm going to do, if it's something I either cannot do and or I will not do, what happens is I undermine my own credibility. Whatever else good happens, I've already trashed my believability. I've weakened my trust factor. The third rule is that everything I say I'm going to do or plan to do as part of this model to get out of my power struggle must be something I can do without strong emotion. The reason for this is because every good conflict resolution book I've ever read, every good negotiating book I've ever read tells me, without fail, that the best way to screw up any good logical or rational system is to inject strong emotion. So this is just really good practical advice They can't negotiate peace between two warring countries if they're still blowing each other up. So that's why we have ceasefires and temporary peace treaties, etc. And the final rule that must apply to every item that I put on my list of things I'm going to do to try and end the power struggle is that every item on my list must be something that is not designed to get the other person to do what they want to do, or to what I want them to do, or make them, or manipulate them, or force them to do what I want them to do. Every item I put on my list must be something that's designed to make my life more safe, more sane, and more livable, regardless of what the other person chooses to do. And if I formulate a plan of action where each step of the plan of action follows all 4 rules, my life is going to get better. I'm going to end that power struggle, and I'm going to get more of what I can get out of life with less frustration, less hurt, less bitterness. I don't get everything I want out of life. That's just the nature of existence on this planet. But I will get more of what I can get with a lot less frustration if I use a system like this. And so we talked about that in our first session today. We were talking about what are the things that he's actually willing to do and will follow through and do. And because that's quite limited, he was beginning to feel as though he's got no options, because he's not the kind of person who would tell his son that he can't live there anymore. So he felt like he's got no options. Well, when that happens, my task as the outside coach is to help people see there's all kinds of options they have short of the ultimate, end the relationship, get out and never want to see you again. And that's where the real practice of assessing a power struggle model and accurately assessing what I have control over and what I don't have control over can be so valuable. The other thing is, a lot of times people make the mistake of thinking, if I am going to tell somebody that I'm going to give them a consequence, I have to tell them what the consequence is right now, immediately, right away, or beforehand. And that's not true either. And so he left, the session today feeling very good about the fact that he could just say to his son, hey, I love you very much, and I'm doing this, this, and this for you, and I'm doing it to try and help you. And I think it would be most beneficial if you do this, this, and this. If you're not willing to do this, this, and this, I will figure out something. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll figure out something to help send the message to you about how strongly I feel about your choice or your behavior or your lack of appropriate behavior. I don't know what it is yet, but don't worry about it. I'll find a way to communicate effectively about what I think is acceptable and not acceptable using the things that I have control over. And then the other person can evaluate for themselves. How well do they trust that you mean what you say and you will follow through on what you say you will do? How willing are they to let you come up with consequences that they probably won't like? How motivated by your example of staying focused on things you have control over can they become to start focusing on the things in their life that they have control over? And in this way of staying focused on things I control and staying loving and trying to do what's best for everyone involved, including myself, I establish an entirely different pattern than what I had established when I was pursuing things in a power struggle way. So if somebody says to me, screw you, I'm not going to do what you want me to do, the best response I could have is to begin with a deep breath, turn the focus inside, calm myself a little bit, and then say to that person, the first word out of my mouth could be, okay. And then the next words out of my mouth are about how I'm going to do things based on things I actually have control over in a way to communicate to that other person that I respect them and I respect myself, and I'm going to do things that make my life more safe, more sane, and more livable, regardless of what they choose to do. I'm going to pull away from my cultural and family training of trying to force and manipulate other people to do stuff and just focus on myself and focus on my behaviors, my strengths, my resources that I actually have control over. And with practice, it gets easier and easier for me to do that with with an eye towards doing the thing that is going to make my life better, more safe, more sane, more livable, regardless of what the other people around me choose to do. So that's the essence of the power struggle model that is available through the book. Now it's currently called the Parenting Power Struggle Handbook. And the outline of that's available free on whyagain.org, not whyagain.org, on the MindShiftersAcademy.org website under educational material. And we have plenty of time for comments and questions. We have 35 minutes left. What's on your mind? What have we sparked in terms of comments or questions talking about power struggles, how to identify them, define them, identify them, get out of them once we're in them, and avoid them in the future? 563-999-3581. You can call that number and press 1 and let us know what's on your mind. The other big topic that we had today in the second session this morning was the physical energies that we download when we're children and things are not going so well. Michael Rice might call it a power person dynamic. Some people might call it adverse childhood events, the ACE study. Some people might call it trauma. But the fact of the matter is, this is just this thing that we call a mind and a body. It's just an energy system. And it's all connected. There is no significant difference between my mind and my body. Some would go so far as to say that my body is simply an outpicturing of those energies that I've practiced so thoroughly in my mind. And there are many people who have accomplished healing by correcting their false beliefs and resolving past traumas and releasing the energies that are embodied in negative beliefs about self. So I was talking to a woman who was absolutely convinced that she's got some terrible autoimmune disease because her sister has it and her mother used to have something like it, and she's gotten some labels and diagnosis, and she's done some research on the internet, and she was feeling really, really badly, and physically badly, and tense and sore, and then we started talking about a situation that arose a couple weeks ago in her life that she had a very negative emotional response to. And I just came back to the basics and reminded her that, as we've talked, she's known me for quite a while, we've talked about how the traumatic energies that I experienced in my adulthood didn't begin in my adulthood. For the most part, there are these energies and beliefs that I stored in my first 6 or 7 or 8 years of life, depending upon which experts you rely upon for that. And so if I'm a competent adult who starts to feel helpless and hopeless and overwhelmed, there is a very strong possibility that this is something I downloaded in my first 6 or 8 years of life that's just getting activated. There's a very strong possibility that I'm not actually helpless and hopeless as a competent adult in my life situation. So we started talking about that, and we started talking about the similarities between the negative, unpleasant interactions she was having with some family members today, as she's in her mid-40s, and how similar it is to some of the very abusive, unproductive patterns that she lived with as a child, because her parents had such serious difficulties. And as she talked about that, as she listened to me talk about that and bring up some of the things I know about her history, she began to cry and went through several pieces of Kleenex and began whimpering at one point, really little girl type whimpering. And I had her keep her breath moving, and I listened as she tried to blame all of this on her current life situations. And I just kept coming back to the coaching of how we know that's not really true, that as a competent adult in her mid-40s, she has handled things very well. She has the ability to drive away from situations, sign her own contracts, get her own jobs, etc., and she is not helpless and hopeless the way she was when she was 3 and 5 and 12 years old. And there was a very abusive, stuck, toxic behavior pattern in her house where she was growing up. And as she kept acknowledging the similarities between what I was saying and what her lived experience was as a child, she began shifting. Physically, she was sitting up straighter, the tears dried up, and by the end of the session, she said, much to her surprise, that she felt a lot better after that cry. And after making the connections between the traumatic patterns of her childhood and the false beliefs she was attributing to her recent adult interactions with people in her life. So, the energy system that we call a body is constantly there. It is the mind and the body. They are not separate. And it gives us feedback. It gives us information. If we can help train ourselves to the opposite of what our culture has taught us, and train ourselves to understand that every negative emotion we experience contains important information for us. It is not punishment. It is not true with a capital T. It's information. If we can train ourselves to understand that the best use of that negative emotional experience is to turn the focus inside of ourselves and to ask how we are creating that emotion, and or clarify for ourselves, what are we making this situation mean? What old belief has just gotten activated that's distorting our worldview and making it seem as though we're helpless and hopeless and every bit as stuck as we were when we were in our single-digit ages, living in a traumatic family situation or dealing with a crisis? Once we become aware of that consciously, it loses its power to drive our perception, to convince us that what's false is actually true. So in that model, which is, I believe, demonstrated so clearly through the Way of Mastery and A Course in Miracles and Byron Katie's work and Michael Rice's work and Guy Finley's work and Diedrich Wolzak's work, it is so clear that the dynamic is there. Even Bruce Lipton talks a lot in his more recent work about how in your first 8 years of life, 7 or 8 years of life, you're just in a theta state. You're just in a state of hypnosis, and you're just absorbing these energies with zero filters, just complete absorption, and whatever belief structure was in place when those energies get absorbed seems true and gets locked into your system. And then years later, when that gets activated, it comes flooding up with a complete set of instructions on how to survive and what this means. And it can be dramatically off target. It can be quite false. Negative beliefs about yourself are always false. And yet, when they come up in your mind, you have a tendency to believe them because they come from a pretty good source, you think, which is you, because you think you're pretty smart. Because in our culture, we've been trained to believe that our conscious logical mind is king or queen of our domain. And that's part of the core of this work, is to help us understand that the conscious logical mind, the way of mastery puts it, is a very stupid servant. It's there just to help us navigate through the physical realm. And it is not the solution to our mental and emotional problems. It is the source. The misapplication of our mind energy is the source of our mental, emotional, and psychological pain. So rather than relying on the thing that created the pain to solve it, we want to ask to be shown something else. We want to tap into a higher level of integration of mind, of energy, of flow, of creative source, of insight, of intuition. We want to be able to tap into that, and we want to be able to find a set of tools that we enjoy, that work well for us, that'll help us do that persistently and consistently. And that's what this work is about. That's why the worksheet's made available absolutely free. That's why the Mind Shifter tool is so useful. It helps me uncover what it is I've come to believe about myself that's false, and perhaps even uncover the time frame, the mindset of myself at the 8-year-old or 7-year-old or whatever. And in the unraveling of what those events were, and in the asking to be shown and clarifying what are the negative beliefs about myself that I downloaded at that time, I get access to the root of the false belief. And as the way A Course in Miracles tells us, you must only return to the original error in thought in order for all of the negative effects of that erroneous thought to be dismantled. I need only see the original error in thought so that all of the negative effects of that faulty thought, that false belief, will be dismantled. And whyagain.org, click on the Start Here button in the upper left-hand corner, or the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, and you'll get access, completely free access to a whole host of tools that can help you begin to dismantle those negative beliefs. First identify, and then dismantle those negative beliefs. And once you've done that, the ripple effect of the structure of false beliefs and unhealthy relationships and abusive energy dynamics that you've been swimming in begins to fall apart. And we're here to help support you do that. 563-999-3581. We got about 22 minutes left, and we're open for comments, questions, answers, suggested topics. How can we support you today? What have we mentioned so far in this or recent shows this week that's on your mind that you'd like to clarify, or an entirely different topic that you'd like us to explore? And if I don't know anything about it, I'll let you know that. And if I know something about it, I'll share what I know. That's one of the more poignant, powerfully good things that bubbled back into my awareness this week. The idea that the more I learn, the more I realize how little I actually know. the more really good books that people turn me on to and I start exploring, the more I get to see how useful it is to question some of the most fundamental beliefs, even about my own life and career, even about my own training as a therapist and psychologist. And that's been happening, that I've been seeing through reading the last 4 or 5 books I've been reading, the ways in which even I, as this alternative medicine, alternative practitioner therapist or integrative or holistic therapist, even I have been indoctrinated to certain fundamental beliefs that are just false. And the more I can become aware of them, the more freedom I have to step outside of them. And as long as they're active in me and I'm not aware of them, they control what I think and do. Those parts of me that I'm aware of, I can control. Those parts of my thought system and my energy system, my trauma structure that I'm not aware of, they control me. And I wish it were different. I wish there was a way to say, okay, I'm only going to say and do that stuff that's actually true and benefits everybody, myself and everybody around me, but that's not the way the system works. The way the system works is the strongest resonant energy in me that I am not aware of will be the thing that drives my behavior. And as unpleasant as that is to come to terms with, unless I'm willing to come to terms with it, I can't change it. One of the ways that I change that is by being willing to routinely engage in tools that will help me discover and then dismantle the unproductive or false beliefs. If I'm not willing to do that, I walk around thinking I know what I know that I know. And every time I enter a situation with that belief that I know what I know and how I know it and when I'm going to leave that situation knowing what I knew. There is no possibility for learning when I hold on to the belief that I know what I know. And I'm not going to be, manipulated, and I'm not going to be convinced, and I'm not going to be distracted from what I know. Which is okay. I mean, a lot of us live our lives that way. It's also good to understand that if that's the position that I adopt, it is not possible for me to learn anything. In order for me to learn anything, I have to go into a situation with the direct observation that I don't really know everything there is to know. And that's an easy enough, simple observation to make, right? I don't have to stretch anything to make the observation that I don't know everything. And once I make that realization, then the next corollary realization is right there for me to be seen. And that is, whatever it is I think I know can only be partially true and perhaps is even completely false. And if I enter a situation with that direct observation, now I have opened the possibility for learning and growth. Area code 828, you're in the air.
What? Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes. Is this Magda?
Yes. Wait a minute. Got to get myself back on speaker so I can hear you. Shoot.
Hello.
Are you connected?
I can hear you. How can we support you today?
That's great. And I can't hear you very well.
Come in, Magda. But Magda dropped, so we can't talk to Magda. But we do have 15 or 17 minutes left. So as we're waiting to maybe have Magda come back in, if you have a thought or a comment or a question for us, 563-999-3581. Magda, are you back?
I am back. Yes. Thank you for being so patient. So I'm calling today to tell you how very grateful I am that you continually teach the same thing over and over, and you phrase it in different ways, and you give different illustrations. And so I was finally able to get it yesterday. So your talk yesterday was so very valuable to me. And what I got was that it was how to, I guess, switch from continuing to do the same behavior over and over, which has not worked. And I had known before that I needed to do that. I just didn't know how to actually stop it. So what it is that this behavior I'm talking about, when I have a task in front of me that I'm not quite sure about how to approach it, I have a lot of anxiety that comes up. And I have two ways of dealing with that anxiety I have noticed over time. And one is to have some kind of pleasure, actually, either entertainment by watching a movie on TV or turning on the TV and hearing the news, tuning into public radio, always having something coming into my senses. The other one is grabbing some food when I'm not hungry to deal with pleasure through the taste of the food. And so what I realized yesterday was when you said just refuse to do what you have always done. And I had been wondering, well, how do I refuse? Because when I try that, I feel utterly useless and weak, and that it's hopeless, that if I refuse to do these behaviors, that I'm going to kind of explode from anxiety. And what I got yesterday was, it's not just a matter of stopping, it's a matter of doing something different, stopping that behavior and replacing it with a different behavior. This is not new to you, of course. You've been teaching this for a long time. And so I tried it. And the next time I started to feel anxiety coming up, I just stopped what I was doing and I did some tapping. And within a very short amount of time, the anxiety was gone. And so the other thing to add in there, of course, is to do some worksheets. However, just getting the start with taking the high energy anxiety off the table by tapping was a big deal for me, so that I was able to then continue with what I needed to do and feel clearer about it, because I was able to go with guidance, internal guidance, rather than internal anxiety. So my big thing today is thank you. Thank you, thank you.
We're quite welcome and deserving. You know, one of those things that drives us to use our drug of choice or our behavior of choice for distraction is the false belief that we cannot handle the negative emotional state, whether it's anxiety or fear or rage or emotional hurt. And what we understand in this work, one of the core beliefs of this work, is that if it's a negative thought about myself or somebody else or a negative emotion, I can instantly know three things. The first of them is it's false. It's a lie. If it's negative, it's a lie. At best, it's only a partial piece of the totality of the capital T truth.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, by extension, that means, if that's true, and I can observe it for myself, if that's true, it's perfectly safe for me to sit with the anxiety as it escalates. It's perfectly safe for me to sit in the anger, the fear, or the sadness or hurt as it escalates, because it can't hurt me because it's false. The belief that's giving rise to it is false. And the belief that says, I can't handle this, is false. So once I recognize that it is perfectly safe for me to sit with it, that gives me permission. It doesn't make it easy, but it makes it possible for me to sit with it as the intensity ratchets up.
Oh. Does that mean that it would be better perhaps not to do the tapping?
No, the tapping is fine, because then you're still staying there, right? You're with the energy. When you're tapping, you're not tapping away energy. You're tapping to keep your energy system open so it can process the energy.
True. Right.
So you're sitting with it, and you breathe and tap, and you recognize that it's just energy. And if you're doing the tapping the way it's recommended is, you're focusing on the upset and allowing and accepting it. The faster EFT tapping says over and over again, I allow this energy to be here, I feel it fully, and I release it to let it flow through me when it's no longer needed. It's not about chasing it away. It's not about distraction. It's not about numbing it out. It's about staying awake and aware and letting the energy system be what it needs to be as I become more aware of it. And when I do that, quite often, I open myself to realizations and insights, because now I'm not running to my drug of choice or my distracting behavior or my numbing out. I'm just focused on what's happening in my energy system and allowing it to be there.
So I need some more clarity about that. I'm in apparently big resistance to understanding that. Okay, so if I have anxiety that's come up and I allow myself to sit with it, to be with it, to let it expand and become stronger instead of tapping, that would seem to push me in the direction of realizing what it's about and doing a worksheet to release it instead of merely using the tapping to take the pressure off, so to speak.
Okay. The first thing that pops into my head is you're trying too hard to get it right and be perfect, and you're trying to figure it out.
That's for sure.
Okay? All right?
Yeah.
And the second thing that pops into my head is, oh, Magda has once again found a way to label herself as doing it wrong.
Okay.
And you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing it fine, and you're experimenting, and you're working with different things, and you'll find what works for you. The third thing that comes to mind is to say that when we're in a support group and we're doing worksheets, or when I'm in a session with somebody doing a worksheet, we don't start out with tapping. But we'll use the tapping if the person's emotional energy gets so intense that it makes it difficult for them to focus on the steps of the worksheet or to think clearly, or if their tears come up and they're sobbing and crying. Then we use the tapping simply to keep the energy system open, right, to help loosen any resistance to seeing what's going on and to working with the tools. But then we come back to the tool. As soon as a person is calmed down enough, if we began a worksheet and they got so triggered that they were crying and sobbing and couldn't finish the worksheet, then we do some EFT tapping or some faster EFT tapping just to keep their energy system softened and open and let some of that intensity spill off, and then we come back to the worksheet. It's not an either-or thing.
Got it. Yeah.
Right? Because some people have these things where I had this happen yesterday in a session. there's a woman, and she's been to support groups, and she's done worksheets, and so she knows the whole process inside and out, the journaling and everything else. And she came in, and she was quite agitated. And as she was agitated, I started talking to her about one of the last releases that I knew she knew about with herself, and a dynamic that she watched somebody else go through in one of the support groups. As I talked to her about it, and she let herself cry, all of a sudden her crying got more intense, and she said, I know what it's about. And she just, because she's done this work enough, she flashed back to something when she was X number of years old and saw that that dynamic was active today. So she didn't even need to go through the whole worksheet to get there. But now she knows she can take that insight home, and she can do worksheets, and she can do the breath sessions, and she can do more targeted journaling and dig up more and resolve more. Again, what we were talking about earlier is all I really need at that fundamental level is to see the original error in thought in order for all of the negative effects of that error in thought to be dismantled. It's not like, okay, I found this out, this happened when I was 5, and I downloaded this belief, now what do I do about it? It doesn't work that way. If you really see that when I was 5 years old, I thought it was all my fault that my father was, beating my sister or whatever, I'm now an adult looking back, and I realize, well, no 5-year-old ever caused their parent to do something horrible like that, so it loses its power to drive my perception.
Okay. That's really powerful. See the original error in thought and deal with that. Okay, thank you. This is it's a much fuller and bigger picture now. It's not either or in terms of anxiety or not having anxiety. It's about using the anxiety as a clue and moving forward.
Right, and understanding that the thoughts that come up in me, the beliefs that come up in me that say, I can't handle this anxiety, are false beliefs. And that opens the door for me to sit with that anxiety or whatever the energy experience is and resist grabbing my drug of choice or engage in my behavior, my distracting behavior of choice, and allowing the flow of energy to educate me about my next steps. Whether it's the EFT tapping and or the worksheet and or the targeted journaling and or Diedrich Wolsack's 6-step to forgiveness process or Byron Katie's worksheets, it's all whatever works for me. It opens the door for me to do it from a more informed space because I'm not running from the information that's provided by the energy flowing through my body that we call anxiety.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm feeling very complete.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call, and I'm glad you're feeling complete, and I look forward to the next time you decide to check in.
Thank you. And once again, thank you for doing this show every day and being steadfast with it. You offer so much, and I'm grateful. Okay. Well, I will say goodbye and listen to the last few minutes. Thank you.
All right. Blessings.
Blessings.
So we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left before Michael and Jeannie start their second hour today. We have, I'll just remind people that this is a Thursday, so there is a support group available tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. The information about joining us in that session or on that session through Zoom is available at mindshiftersacademy.org website. And you can give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1 and talk to us like Magda just did, or you can email me at tjh@mindshiftersacademy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@mindshiftersacademy.org. I was on autopilot there. jeanie@yagain.org. WHYAGAIN.org. So, give us a call. Let us know how you'd like us to spend the second hour with Michael and Jeannie. Get your comments and questions ready for them. I will say we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Appreciate you. And good conversation with Magda. Gave a good insight for me as well on the EFT tapping. So thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. Have a great show.
Thanks.